Recording in progress.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask Massage Therapists on the Internet. I'm one half of your host, Nate Fay, and I'm here with my good friend, Ben Stone, doing what we do best. We post a question once a week on our amazing Facebook page, Ben and Nate's Questions That We Ask Massage Therapists on the Internet. It's up to you to answer them because it is what makes this show tick. Ben and I have thoughtful discussions. We tell dad jokes, but most of all, we're here to learn and have some fun.
That's what we do best. We learn and have fun. We share all this stuff with you guys, and you guys are what makes the show tick. So without you, we would just be a couple of guys telling dad jokes on the internet. So welcome to Ben and A's Questions We Ask People on the Internet, massage therapists on the internet.
So we got a hot topic this week, Ben. Do you want to kick it off and tell our listeners what our question of the week is?
Yeah. So a while back, Nate and I were perusing our stats, and we noticed a trend where some of the questions that were related to male massage therapists tended to get a little bit more views, listens, that kind of thing. So we thought, hey, we need to come up with another question along those lines. And so the question, straight off the Facebook page, Ben and Nate's Questions We Ask Massage Therapists on the Internet, reads, this is for male massage therapists because we came at this was our topic. In your experience, have you felt the need to be more cautious or have stricter boundaries than female counterparts to maintain professionalism and avoid misinterpretations? That's a mouthful right there.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been doing with you, Nate, the last few times is, give me your hot take, your 20-second gut reaction to this question.
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that, and here we go. So my 20-second gut reaction is this. I have to put myself 20 years ago to when I started in this career and everything that was sort of fed in my head. And I think in the beginning, I felt, man, I had to do all these things as a male massage therapist. Stricter boundaries, stricter this, stricter that. And, certainly as I've grown in this profession, as I think we're going to hear from some of our viewers, that should just be across the board, regardless of gender. But it was certainly shoved down my throat early on in my career.
It's interesting how we evolve as we gain experience. And I don't know, maybe we might talk about that, how experience plays a part in how strict we are with our boundaries.
I think this is one of these questions that can evolve. And before I get your 20-second gut, I don't mean to put you on the spot with this, Ben, but so what was that question that we asked a while back regarding male massage therapists that got so many views?
Oh, well, you give me like 10 seconds of filler and I'll have it looked up for you.
Insert song and dance here.
Yeah.
But so the filler is this. While Ben's looking that up, the filler is this. We realized on our Spotify analytics that got the most listens to date out of over 50 podcasts. So Ben and I wanted to talk about this some more because I think we both feel, and this isn't just because we're males in this industry, but I think historically we're males that have been in a female-dominated industry. And I think there is lots to talk about, especially for a lot of our male counterparts coming up.
Yeah, I think this question was asked in like early season 1.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And so I'm going back through some of these, and it's a little bit harder to pick up on. But it was something about being a male massage
you know
therapist.
what, Ben? That's okay. So if you took a bathroom break during that, we're glad you're back to the show here. All right. Well,
here we go.
Oh,
it was basically what was it like? What is it like being a male in the industry? What are the potential pros and cons of being a male in the industry? And then kind of the same thing for female. So we started with the female, asking females that question, and then we asked the same thing with the males.
Yeah. Got it. Got it.
So it's kind of basic. Like what's your, kind of what's your hot take on being a male massage therapist?
So we've talked about boundaries in other contexts, right? We've talked about, sort of building your ideal practice in a roundabout way, having your ideal client, having policies, having everything spelled out at the first visit. So those are some boundaries that we've talked about in the past, right? Boundaries for that client that's 5 or 10 minutes late all the time, boundaries for that client that cancels on you not once but twice, but now it's 3 times, boundaries for that client that's always 20 minutes late and it's the bus, it's traffic, it's this, that, and the other thing. So what type of boundaries are we talking about here? Like, so what is that? What do we mean when we've covered the gamut of everything I just talked about?
That's a good question. And one of the things that I think about when I think about creating boundaries as a male massage therapist is there's I don't know if you see this, but every once in a while you see this in the news where a male massage therapist gets arrested or charged with some kind of, inappropriate behavior, sexual assault, that kind of thing. And it just drives me crazy because it just it leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. It's just bad for the I feel like it's bad for male massage therapists in general.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing too, Ben, because and not to well, we always kind of derail a little bit, but let's look at another profession like in the world of education and teaching. And sometimes one of the things that the internet does, I always ask the question, has this stuff existed forever, or has the internet just brought more things to light, right? Because of the vast connection it gives us to millions of people around the world. And of course, the thing I see now more than ever is I see female teachers getting arrested for dating their underaged, typically male students, right? Charged the same way, right? Arrested, right? Sex offender, the whole thing. And do you think, and we'll never know the answer to this, and, it's interesting because I personally haven't heard about a male massage therapist getting arrested for what you brought up in a long time. I can remember a case in Connecticut where I'm speaking to you from. I can remember a case in Connecticut, probably in the late 2010s, and it's only on my mind because he was practicing in the same town as me, and he got arrested and accused of, crossing the line during a session. And it was interesting because the guy's professional page and even how he advertised himself was it was super professional. And because he was in the same town as me, I paid attention to him a little bit more. And not that I think about competition or anything. I'm like, oh, this is like weird. Like there's another massage therapist in town. We don't really have too many anymore. Oh, there's another male massage therapist in town. We definitely don't have any of those around. So I was kind of paying attention to his social presence. And I'm like, man, he does like a really good job marketing himself. Well, then the guy gets arrested. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, how can this be? Was he being falsely accused? Is it going to come out that he just got, well, sure enough, the clown admitted to crossing the line during multiple sessions.
Mm,
And of course, the worst
yeah.
thing anyone could do and not only say but could do is, oh, I thought that that's what they wanted. And I'm like, oh man, you're such a loser, right, for doing that. But then I wonder, and I don't even know if I want to go here, but then what are there cases against female massage therapists for the same sort of discrepancies, or do you think it's a talked about less, or do you think it goes unnoticed because of the gender role reversed? That's a hard question, I think.
I have not run across any news articles or anything that was brought to my attention where a female was accused. Um, And it's, it's most of the time it's the males that are,
Yeah,
on the table that are being
for sure.
inappropriate. And so that's usually what I hear about or
I would
notice.
imagine, and I know that that's not the question this week, and it's not our topic, but I would imagine it's probably the opposite. I would imagine generally, female therapists probably have to be. I mean, we all have to be strict, right? I think it goes across the board, which is many of our answers were. But I would imagine the female therapist deals with a lot more bullshit than we do.
Yeah, I would agree with you
Yeah,
100% on that.
yeah. But anyway, I would like to safely say, though, that I feel like in general, we're hearing less stories or maybe less to almost no stories anymore. Is that the case? Or when's the last time you heard a story like that?
I would say within as far as males
Male
being
therapist, and
in the
yeah.
news. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately it's been within the
Oh,
last 6 8
really? Yeah.
months that and and literally across the parking
Oh
lot
my
from me.
God.
I don't know all the details. I don't know if it was just or not, but it was in the news and I think that's all that
Yeah.
matters. And someone that's looking to go get massage work done and they see this report on the news, it's gonna affect their decision making. Like, I'm not gonna go see a male because I don't want to have to deal with
Well,
that.
yeah, and I don't know if it directly affects your practice or my practice, right? I don't suddenly see a big plummet in numbers because of what somebody else did down just like you said it was across the street from you. The last story I heard, again, I'm going back 8 9 years to the last localish story I heard, and it was right down the street from me. So while there was no plummet or change in numbers for me, because it had nothing to do with me and it had nothing to do with you, I'm sure, like you said, that there's people out there that are like, well, that's exactly why I don't get massage, or that's exactly why I don't do whatever. It's the same people that, you hear about a chiropractic incident in terms of a neck adjustment. People say that's exactly why I don't go to chiropractors and I'll never see a chiropractor. So it's the same thing in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's just, it's we don't see it directly, but I know it affects the profession and it probably negatively
Yeah,
impacts male massage
absolutely.
therapists. And as a male massage therapist, and I know we talked about this before, but I think in general, getting started, whether it was 20 years ago or now, I think it's a little bit more difficult to get started as a male massage therapist just because of how you're perceived. And just women in general are thought of as more nurturing, as more caring, as more that type of
Sure.
personality in general. And so the male massage therapist, I think their role is more expected to be in what would be considered sports massage, deep tissue massage, clinical massage, orthopedic
Yeah.
massage, that kind of role, as opposed to, oh, I'm going to go get Swedish massage from this
And that's
guy.
going to be an upcoming question. We pose that question: are we expected? And that's going to be a few episodes from now. We haven't even recorded that, but we did pose the question: are you expected as a male therapist to do X, Y, and Z type of modality as a result? So let me ask you this, and I want to get back to another question that neither of us quite answered. Let me ask you this though: what's one thing that Ben Stone does 20 years later? What's one thing that you still do for let's say from a boundary perspective that's important
Wow.
for you to do session to session? Yeah,
It's when I first started, I realized that there is a difference. There's no way around it. There's a difference between male and females. And I didn't want to just ignore that difference. And so I leaned into I need to be better at everything. That was my thought process was I need to be better at draping, I need to be better at communication, I need to be better at all of these things because I felt I was at a disadvantage Whether I was or not, I don't know, but I felt like I was because it just seemed like a female massage therapist could get their license and just go practice and have a pretty good practice. It took me a while to build up my practice, and maybe it was just me, maybe it's just my face, I don't know. Um, but those things that I implemented from the beginning, I feel like I have continued to do that. All of the, the clear communications, explaining things, what's going to happen, and before the session, you do a good job of this. You have your intake forms that spells everything out. This is what you can expect. Um, so I started back then creating those expectations, even though I didn't really realize what I was doing back then. But I think I have honed in on the expectations part, spelling out everything you can expect when you come to see Ben Stone. Do you know? Am I going to be undressed? Are you going to wear shorts? Are you going to, I spell all that out with people. So that's kind of where I'm at 20 years later. So what if I throw that same question back to you? What are some of the things that you do now that you started off, or maybe some things that you do different
Mm,
now that you didn't do 20
yeah.
years ago?
So I'll say, first of all, right, just like you 20 years ago, I mean, I don't even know how to build a practice. We got out of massage school and it was like, good luck. There was no franchises. There was nowhere to work. And, you and I have both talked about this. All my friends were like, it's the same stupid jokes. And there was a stigma, well, I was building a clientele. It was 100% female. My female clients would say, well, my husband should see you, but there's no way he's going to see you because you're a male and he's not going to let another male touch them. And you try to use reasoning like, well, does he have a male doctor that gives him the old prostate exam? But that reasoning's not. I mean, it sounds good on paper, but it's not the same in anybody's head. But then over time, and this isn't answering the question, but over time, when you niche yourself, you get good, you start to build a name, and all of a sudden, the joke stopped. People are like, "Oh man, like you're making a career out of this," and then all of a sudden, oh geez, my husband saw how much better I'm moving. He wants to come and see you, and I don't know what it's like now, but I think a few years ago when I checked my stats, like for say like a 2 month period, I think I was like 60 to 70% males versus female clientele. There was a period that I had more male patients than I did female clients. So that's just a brief history of my last 20 years. But to answer the question, um, you know, in the beginning, right? I mean, being very precise with my draping, my tucking, my this, that, and the other thing. And I probably wasn't as good as explanations and intakes as I am now, but that's something that evolved and evolved and evolved. And we've talked about that. I don't do draping anymore because my clients come in and they're clothed on the table. So my female clients typically have shorts and a tank top or sports top on, and my male clients are in gym shorts. So the number of drape sessions I do per month is probably a total of two, and it is what it is. But the one thing, Ben, to answer this question, the one thing that I do that's a constant with everybody is I do some assessments in the beginning. And sometimes if I don't do assessments and get people right on the table, I'll always say, hey, if they're laying on their belly, I'm going to is it okay if I bring your shirt halfway up so I see your low back? And I do the same thing during the assessment. Whether it's their first session or their 400th session, I'll say, hey, I'm going to put my hands on your low back. Is that okay? And they say yes. And hey, is it okay if we bring your shirt up a little bit just so I can work and see your low back? And that's one thing that I do constantly.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this in the
Yeah.
past, just consent
Yeah.
in general. And that can be, uh, man, the whole time you're working with somebody. hey, we're going to work on your feet now
Yep.
because blah, blah, blah. You
Yeah.
okay with that? Con- Continuous, constant
Yeah.
consent.
So that's like a big one for me. I get a lot of, not a lot, but I probably have a handful of high school athletes that come and see me, male and female. And it's super important for me that the parents in the room with me. And some of these kids, 15, 16, 17, now have been seeing me for a couple years, and I'm just like, the cool therapist at this point. But that stuff's still important to me. That the parent, even if they don't need to be in the room anymore, that they're outside my room.
Yeah, professionalism is professionalism, whether you're male or female. And I think that stuff is just a hallmark of someone who's a professional, is all of those things that you
Yeah.
just talked about.
So, all in all, Ben, while we pose this to male therapists, um, I still think it's a good idea as a male therapist that's starting out to have all your I's and T's just crossed and dotted. And female therapists obviously have to too, right? And that's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different category. So I hope if you're a female therapist listening, you're not thinking, hey, we're excluding you, because certainly that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, part of me thinks, you brought this up earlier. Has has perception changed over the last, say, 10, 15 years? And, are we making a mountain out of a molehill? Is this really that big of a deal anymore for people that are starting out? Is how I don't know, is it still something to worry about
I,
as far as
yeah.
professionalism and the just being more cautious and having
Yeah.
stricter boundaries as a male?
Well, I think in some ways, I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill for sure.
But I mean, we wouldn't have a
That's
show
right.
if we
Well,
weren't
listen,
doing this, right?
it's kind of like when I do my lectures. Like, I like to say a lot about the technique that we're going to do, and then at the end of the day, it's just a great technique that feels good. But I like to just say a million things about it and make a mountain out of a technique. But that's a cool thing. So anyway, I think in one thing that's happened for sure, the growth of massage therapy has changed tremendously. Right, we've gone from this just
Yeah.
generalized, naked on the table massage, right? That's gone out the window. People are now turning to massage and manual therapies for their neck pain, for their low back pain. So I don't think we're looked at the way we were looked at 20 years ago and beyond. However, at the end of the day, just like any profession, right? Any profession, right? You got to have it all spelled out. You absolutely have to.
Yeah. I'll tell you one of the things that I added within the last 7 or 8 years to my emails that get sent out, to my, procedures and policies, is I call it a zero tolerance policy, where I state that I'm not going to tolerate any inappropriate behavior, jokes, gestures, anything that would make fun of the massage profession. And when I first started this job, some of my friends would make inappropriate jokes and stuff like that, and I would just laugh it off and just, but anymore, I've been doing this long enough where I address those things right then and there. And I say, "Hey man, I don't make fun of your
Right.
job. Like that's
Yeah.
that's not cool. I don't appreciate those jokes." And I wish I would have started doing that sooner, because when I started addressing those, they went away.
Right.
All I had to do was say, "Hey, that's not cool. We don't do that. Um, so just cut that out." And it stopped. And so since I put this in my policies and procedures, I've had people actually ask me, they go, you actually have people that are inappropriate with you and do these, crazy things. And I'm like, well, no, not really. Not since I started talking about it and calling it out. It's basically gone away. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen anymore just because I said this is another rule that I will not tolerate. And, if you're not going to play by those rules, you
Yeah.
go somewhere
Yeah.
else.
That's something I dealt with early on, just from my circle of friends. But you know, the biggest way to get them to stop all that was just persevering and showing up some cool success in my field. So I'll tell you,
Yeah.
success does two things to people. It either shuts them up real quick, or it just gives them something else to talk about, a different type of shit to talk.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how about did we have anybody that gave us their comments on our Facebook page? Do we have anything to
Well, I
talk
love
about
that we
there?
had both male and female therapists respond. We specifically asked for that. We wanted everybody to respond. And everybody
Yeah.
across the board, really said that professionalism and boundaries, regardless of gender, should be the same, which is, I think, what we're both settling on. And everything that you and I have said, just clear, right? Having everything spelled out, and which is why I've said from time to time on our podcast why I'm so spelled out on the phone call, the email, the follow up, the text and email reminders. And right, certainly if you were to offer more of a spa setting massage, like I don't do draped work, Ben. I don't think you do much draped work, but if you were, that's when you probably have to be even more crystal clear, which is what Scott said. And then let's see, you know, Wyatt talked about right, same thing, draping. Draping got brought up a lot. Draping's got to be on point. So it's kind of interesting that being said, reputations could be destroyed on a single thing. And yeah, what else, man? We just got some really good long answers. Clear boundaries across the board.
Yeah, that's kind of that seems to be the theme with everybody was doesn't matter if you're
Yeah.
male or female. You got to have those boundaries.
And let me
Um,
ask you this, Ben, because this got brought up a little bit, but is there a difference between the word of mouth referred client and the cold call client when it comes to like boundaries and everything? Do you think there's a different level of boundaries for the cold call client versus the person that's referred and word of mouth and sort of always feels like they know you?
hmm, there's so many thoughts going through my head with that. I don't think there should be a difference with boundaries. Um, I think it may help with
Yeah,
effectiveness of the treatment because there's those expectations like, oh, Judy said that you were the best. And
right.
so I want to experience what the best is like. So they already have these expectations.
Boundaries and everything and expectations, yes, should be exactly the same. But let me ask the question a different way. Do you think there's more of a risk with a cold call client, causing a problem than a word of mouth client causing a problem, being a fire starter?
Right. And I got
No, that's
derailed
okay.
a
I
little
asked the
bit.
question
I
poorly.
think no, I understood what you meant. Uh as I think about this, I think experience plays a part in how we handle people. And you have all of these uh, things in place when someone contacts you. You talk to them. You explain. You get their history. You figure out why they're coming in, and I think all that plays a part in figuring out if someone's trying to be inappropriate. So you have all those things, all the boundaries in
Yeah,
place already, and I feel like in the beginning of my career, I didn't have all those in place because I hadn't
sure.
experienced it. And so now that I'm more experienced, I just know everyone gets these questions And if I hear something that doesn't quite sound right, whether they're a referral or a cold call, I'll kind of, investigate that and like, okay,
Yeah.
tell me more about this. That's the way I feel. I feel like it's more experience versus
I
anything
agree with you,
else.
Ben. I personally don't try. I personally will not take cold call clients, and it's not because I haven't had a pro. I have. It's not because I've had a problem, or anybody's given me the inkling of a problem. But I think there's. I think in my own head, there's more potential for a cold call client to be a fire starter than there is somebody that's a friend of a friend or a cousin of a client or a husband, wife, whatever. So, and again, maybe I'm making, as we say, a mountain out of a molehill on that, but I just won't do it anymore. And that's just where I'm at.
Well, I like it. It already sets you, it gives you a better probability of getting better
Well,
results
yeah,
already by working
right.
with referrals, which I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
for
good thing.
sure. I just want to read a couple perspectives from our amazing female therapist. As a female massage therapist who employs male massage therapists, this is something that we talk about and are conscious of, especially with a newly licensed therapist, which we've talked about. When you're new, you have to set that groundwork so much differently. Um, but again, everybody's boundaries should be the same. And the beautiful thing, the comment, I think I'm gonna give her a shout out. I follow her page. I'm gonna give her a little bit of a shout out. I follow this therapist. Her name is Erin Stebbins. And Erin actually had a great. I was reading through one of her posts the other day. I'm just going to pull it up because there was something in there that she said that I liked. She has a program that she runs, and let me pull it up here. Where I don't know if I can find
Yeah.
it. This is where we got to play like Little Spanish Flea or something like that while I'm trying to pull it up. Well,
Yes.
anyway, I can't
Um,
find it quick enough for the purposes of our show, but what she talked about, how hard it was for her in the beginning, 15, 20 years ago. There was no internet, right? There was doing everything that you and I talked about, trying to get our hands on books, buying VHS tapes of massage techniques, DVDs of massage techniques, having no one to talk to, having no community, and figuring all this out on our own. So then you have all these resources now. Some of them are great, kind of like our podcast, and some of them are not so great. But a lot of new and upcoming therapists have these resources to take our ideas, to take what we're saying, so that they can start off a lot better than you and I did.
Absolutely. Taking some of these ideas and making them their own. I mean, man, if I would have had some of these resources when I was starting out, I know we've talked about this before, but oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Uh,
We wouldn't have,
I'd probably be a thousandaire by now, or almost,
I
or
know.
close to a
Well,
millionaire.
I got a 16-year-old man, so I'll never be I won't even be 100 air at any point in my life. But you know what? We probably wouldn't
Oh
have had to call
man.
it practice. We could have just called it doing.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
that's where it's at. So kudos to the younger generation upcoming up with all these resources. I used to have to put a note in a pigeon's mouth, send it down to Oklahoma to Eric Dalton, and get a reply back 4 weeks later. It's just the way it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Technology has done wonders for, man, for just
For
education in
everybody.
general.
I'm practically a
Yeah.
licensed medical
I
physician
love
at
it.
this point, thanks to Instagram. How about you?
Oh, I tell you what, I've been seeing, I don't know, I don't want to get derailed on this, but some of the things I've been seeing on the Instagram is just, I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm interested and I'm also appalled.
Hey, Ben, with that being said, what's your big takeaway for tonight?
Man, it just made me think about the difference between where I started and where I'm at now with my boundaries and how things have evolved and also, tightened up a little bit. And I can remember a story when I was first starting out. I had a little bit of a reluctance to work with the glute muscles with people because I thought it was weird to just go and work with glute muscles. And this was back when you didn't talk a whole lot. You just, the idea was don't talk unless the client
Right.
talks back to you or talks to you first. Like all these stupid rules that I don't even yeah, we could make a whole podcast out of that. But I'm like, I don't want ever want someone to feel, I don't know, weird to have their glutes worked on. I don't want to ever lose the feeling of what it's like to be able to tell somebody, "Hey, we're going to work with this muscle group because." And I started doing that because I wanted people to feel comfortable with having things worked on and to know why they're getting worked on and that kind of thing. And here it is 20 plus years later. I don't really explain why I do explain why I'm doing things, but I don't have that same fear that I had
Yeah.
when I first started. So it's just this I don't know how to explain it, but uh more experience has helped my evolution in creating boundaries. And it's also very important to be able to
Right.
enforce these boundaries. I mean, it's good to have boundaries, but if you don't enforce them, they're worthless. And that's the hard part too that comes with experience is, hey, I noticed this, we're gonna have to enforce this boundary, blah blah blah. Like nobody likes to do it, but it, it's part of
Yeah.
experience and getting older. I don't
No,
know, how
I
was
think
that?
that's great. And I was thinking about that when you were saying that about, explanations then versus now. I had a client the other day, I was working on them, and, sometimes my sessions go pretty quiet, which is fine. Sometimes people get quiet. I follow their vibe. And I don't know, halfway into the session, he goes, man, he goes, while you're working on me, he goes, I think about that movie, The Terminator, where they were just robots and all their inner workings and moving around. And he goes, I picture like that's what you're picturing while you're working on me. And he goes, I know that kind of sounds weird, but that's just what I'm picturing. And I'm like, honestly, I said, that's what most people maybe don't know is that's what's going on through my brain the whole time. And I'm just trying to draw this picture in my head about like what is lying beneath the surface of what I can actually, see. And I said, at the end of the day, one of my old massage friend colleagues in massage school used to say this to me, speaking as a male massage therapist. So 20 plus years ago, this guy in my massage class used to say to me that we should have shirts as male massage therapists. You're all just muscle, skin, and bones to me. And it's Yeah, and that's the way that I
I mean,
think to
that's what
this
it
day. But
is.
I'm going to add about another 20 minutes to our podcast here, even though I shouldn't, because the other thing that you made me think about while you were saying that, and I did a blog, but I once in a while I throw a blog up on my Facebook page when I'm feeling inspired, and I felt pretty inspired recently because I'm still sort of amazed, and now I'm talking about when a good technique is posted. I'm not talking about some of the nonsense that we see on Instagram where that maybe that should let, it's okay to be like, oh, that's ridiculous, things like that. But it still is interesting to me when an excellent educator posts a thoughtful technique video, and still to this day people will post things like, well, I'll get fired if I ever do that, or I can't work, like you said, I can't work on the glutes in my practice or I'll get fired, so I can't do that technique. And it's just so amazing to me that some of that stuff does still exist, to kind of go hand in hand with what you're saying. And I'm not sure why that
Yeah.
is. And, like, especially in the franchises, like, oh, we can't work on glutes here. We can't work on chest wall here. And it's like, it's just fascinating to me. That's a whole different podcast, probably. But I think some of the stuff that you're touching upon still exists out there.
Yeah, some of those things they just don't go away. And why
Why
is
is
that?
that?
And like you said, we could have a whole other
Yeah.
podcast episode about that. And I think we'll do that in the future. We want to talk. Do you work at Massage Envy, Elements, one of the big franchises?
And
What's
its
another
own, I
one?
think if they still
Hand and
exist,
Stone, is
sure.
that one? Yeah. If you work there, let us know because we want to talk.
That's
We want to
right.
ask you some questions. But before we do that, I want to go back and find out what's your big takeaway from what we talked about today. What
Well,
left
you
an
know, Ben, I
impression
think the
on
big
you?
takeaway is just, coinciding with our listeners that, strong boundaries across the board. And, certainly the ideas of, constant informed consent session to session, keeping that first session like the 40th session, not letting things slip. Don't let your boundaries slip because we do have a tendency of, as therapists, when you're on that 20th session, somebody, you're practically best friends at that point. So it's easy to let those boundaries slip. So it's important to keep everything up.
Yeah.
Makes for less awkward moments in the future when you have to give somebody a little hand slap for being 20 minutes late every session because they feel too comfortable with you.
Ain't that the
And
truth?
Ben, well,
Oh
hold on.
man.
Sorry, man.
So,
Sorry to my listeners. This is just bonus time. I think I had a boundary thing happen to me recently. So we just got through this whole episode. And now it's like my brain is remembering. So let's use the bad days of COVID as our barometer. So BC,
okay.
2020 beyond, AC,
Yeah.
before COVID and after COVID. And I think that many of us maybe, were brought up in a way like you didn't call out of work. You just went to work, right? Cold, flu, you went to work. And being self employed, you were scared about losing money. That was in my younger days. And people would come in sick, and I would never think twice about it. Now, this isn't a conversation about COVID. It just happened to be the barometer of a change in boundary. And after COVID, I was like, you know what? I don't want to get sick anymore because people don't want me getting sick when I'm working on them. People don't want me in the clinic while I'm working on them. And, like you, Ben, now I've got this whole teaching gig. So a couple weekends a month, I'm going on the road and I have to talk for 16 hours, which is pretty tough to do when you're losing your voice. So over the last few
Hmm.
years, I've started, it's been a boundary for me. Like, listen, I don't come in. I don't care if it's last minute. If you have to cancel on me, I won't penalize you. Just if you're sick, don't come in. And luckily, I don't for some reason get sick like I used to, but I will cancel a day if I'm not feeling good to, extend the courtesy. So I had a client, I was a couple days before one of my last workshops, and that's when I get a little bit more on high alert because now I'm thinking ahead that I've got to, talk for 16 hours straight. And so I'm a little bit more high alert to people walking in the door. And one of my longtime clients came in and she walked in. She walked in with a mask on, which is a dead giveaway because she never wears a mask. And I said, "Hey," I said, "What's the mask for?"
Yeah.
She goes, "Well, I woke up this morning with a really bad sore throat and, a lot of dripping." And I said, geez, I said, "I'm sorry that you drove in here today." I said, "But I can't see you today." And I said, I have to lecture in a couple days, and it's just really important to me that I don't get sick. And she said to me, and rightly so, she goes, "It never used to be a problem for you." She goes, "Why is it a problem now?" And I said, "You're right." I said, "You're 100% right." And I said, "It never did used to be a problem for me." And I said, I hear you that, things are going to change and evolve. But I said, the reality is I said, I've gotten a little bit older. I have this whole other responsibility now to, this other business, not only my business, but I said, it's just the way it is now. And I said, I'm sorry that you drove up here. I'm sorry if you're upset, but just know that going forward to just give me a call and I won't hold it against you. Now she did leave totally cool and wasn't upset, but I do believe though, Ben, she had every right to be like, hey, what gives? You never had a problem with this. That wasn't my bad. It wasn't really a my bad, but it's the way it used to be.
It totally is. And that goes into some of my stuff that I send out to people. I tell them, if
Yeah.
you're sick, I can't work on you. And but yeah, absolutely, like you said, I used to go in like I I'd be, whatever over the counter
Oh
drugs I
yeah.
could get to get me to function halfway through the session. When they weren't looking at me,
Yeah.
I would shove tissue up my nose so that,
Yeah.
so they, ah, I mean, and I don't do that anymore. I extend them the same courtesy. Hey, I'm sick. You don't want me dripping all over you. Yeah, that ties in pretty well
Sure.
to our topic about having
Yeah.
stricter
So at the
boundaries.
end of the day, though, Ben,
Um,
and I know that's
but
not having to do with males or females or anything we talked about, but boundaries can evolve. They can change and evolve.
Absolutely. I mean, something happens,
That's right. Yeah.
put up a new boundary.
Those rules.
New thing happens. Oh, guess what?
And by the way,
We
only
got this new
because I'm getting
boundary.
silly now, the inside of a black t-shirt worked great for those sessions too. Anyway, let's wrap this up,
Oh
buddy. People got
yeah.
to go to bed.
That's right. So, if people want to support what we're doing with the show, tell them what they can
Go
do,
on our
Nate.
Facebook page, Ben and Nate's questions that we ask massage therapists on the internet, and just interact with our posts. So because that's what makes the show. When you guys answer these questions, that's what makes up this show, so that we can in return come back with a great conversation for you.
I tell you what, I we get to you and I get together and we record these shows and it sparks ideas, it sparks conversation, it sparks new thoughts in me that over the next week or so, I tell people about this in my practice. I go, yeah, I do this thing. It's a podcast with my buddy Nate. He lives out on the East Coast, but we talk about these topics, and a lot of times they're relevant to what I'm talking
Absolutely.
to some of my clients about. And that's what I love about these shows. And so when you guys that are listening, when you send in your thoughts and your ideas, that helps spark other thoughts in probably not only Nate and myself, but in other people who are listening also. So we appreciate any thoughts that you want to share with us. If you don't want to make it public, send us a private message, all that stuff. We are all about listening and doing the best we can with what we got, which is called Ben and Nate's Questions We Ask Massage Therapists on the
See you
Internet.
next time.